rise and fall of Elephant and Castle. Elephant and Castle has always been one of my favourite tube stops just because of its name. It was once called the Piccadilly of the South. Elephant and Castle has been a Victorian powerhouse, post-war utopia and now a developer's dream. It's been regenerated again and again, with each era building over the last and each promising renewal. This is the rise and fall and rise again of Elephant and Castle, the Victorian dream. In the 19th century, Elephant and Castle was literally at the crossroads of an empire. It was at the junction of 6 major roads that were leading into London, a vital node into London's expanding network. Looked out the window, you see carriages and trams rattling past. It was a buzzing place. This was working class South London, but it didn't lack glamour. In the 1890s, Elephant and Castle was famous for its theatres, grand department stores and its public houses. The Elephant and Castle pub, which gave the area its name, stood proudly at the centre. The earliest reference to an inn named the Elephant and Castle is to around 1765. Some sources suggest even earlier as the 1650s. It stood where the current roundabout is today, at the busy junction linking the roads between London Bridge, Kennington and Newington. Because this crossroads was such a key stop for travellers and stagecoaches, the pub's name became a shorthand for the area itself. There are 3 main theories as to why the pub was called that. Theory 1 is that the Cutlers Company, which is London's medieval guild for knife makers, used an elephant carrying a castle on its back as a symbol. Why an elephant? Because the ivory was often used to make knife handles. Why a castle? Because this would represent strength and protection. Or it could possibly have been a stylized howdah, which is a seat that carries on an elephant's back. So Elephant and Castle may have originally referred to a cutler's shop or an arms sign, later adopted by a nearby inn of the same name. Theory 2 is slightly more romantic, claiming that the name evolved from La Infanta de Castilla, referring to a Spanish princess, possibly Eleanor of Castile, the 13th century wife to Edward I. According to this theory, Infanta de Castilla was misheard or anglicised over time into Elephant and Castle. Whilst this is a super charming idea, historians generally dismiss it. There is no evidence of any Spanish royal connection in this area. The timing doesn't fit the pub's origins. Theory 3 is that the name is a symbol of empire and trade. By the 18th century, ivory and exotic animals like elephants were strongly associated with empire, wealth and imported goods. Naming an inn the Elephant and Castle might simply evoke that imperial glamour. Exotic, memorable and a fitting major stop for those travelling into London. From Mayfair to Kensington, people called it the Piccadilly of the South. It was busy and bustling. You could buy a hat, see a music hall act and grab a pint without ever crossing the Thames. This was London's new kind of prosperity, consumerist and noisy, but that same density brought with it overcrowding, slum housing and industrial smog. By the end of the Victorian era, Elephant and Castle had become a place of contrast, entertainment and poverty living side by side. 2 is the modernist experiment, because then came the Blitz. Elephant and Castle was hit hard and flattened in places. As the dust settled for post-war planners, the destruction wasn't just a tragedy, but it also represented a really golden opportunity. London City Council saw the bomb site as a blank slate, a chance to build the city of the future. It would be the chaos of the Victorian streets and the city terraces. In their place, there was a real opportunity to bring light and order. In the 1950s and 60s, Elephant and Castle was reborn as a brutalist showcase. There was the Haygate Estate, the Aylesbury Estate, and Elephant and Castle Shopping Centre, which all rose as monuments to this new social ideal. Architects imagined communities connected by elevated walkways, shops and clinics, and schools integrated into the design. The shopping centre, which was opened in 1965, was amongst one of the first in Britain. It had escalators, air conditioning, and a car park big enough for the new age of mobility. This was during an era where we see the welfare state in architecture. Modernism had been moralised and politicised. The urban area was supposed to promise dignity and equality. The dream began to crack, because concrete doesn't age well in English weather, and funding for the maintenance inevitably dried up. Estates across the country, which were once a symbol of hope, became the scapegoats for an urban decline. By the 1980s, Elephant and Castle's modernist utopia, modernist landscape, starting to look more like a failure than a utopia. The shopping centre, once futuristic, had become infamous for its confusing layout and flickering lights. And the Haygate's raised walkways, meant to encourage community, were now deemed as unsafe. But for those who live there, they tell a different story. Behind the headlines of crime and concrete jungle, there was a community. people who looked after each other, children who grew up together, and gardens on balconies, regeneration and the geography of displacement. In the 21st century, the word regeneration became the zeitgeist. Elephant and Castle, planners said, would finally fulfil its potential. After decades of neglect, the area was chosen for one of London's biggest regeneration projects. Public-private partnerships promised thousands of new homes, green spaces, and investment. Behind these glossy visuals, the story was far from straightforward. Between 2011 and 2014, the Haygate estate, which was once home to 3,000 people, was demolished. Developers promised new affordable housing in its place, but fewer than 100 of the new units were truly affordable to the residents. These were priced out for an entirely different demographic of investors, professionals, and outsiders. The community that once held the place together was now scattered across London. Inside the shopping centre, a different type of community had taken root. By the 2000s, Elephant and Castle had become a hub for the Latin American community in London, full of cafes, beauty salons, and food stalls. But this too was marked for demolition. Developers called it revitalisations, but locals called it erasure. When the centre closed in 2020, many of the traders were forced out. The businesses priced out by the new Elephant Park that replaced it. And today, Elephant and Castle is unrecognisable. Glass towers rise where old estates once stood. There are leafy boulevards and eco-housing developments that are boasting sustainability, but who for? The regeneration once sold itself on green space and community, but many of the former residents can no longer afford to live there. The Elephant, once a working class crossroads in London, has become another monument of neoliberal urbanism, where land is an investment rather than a home. The story of Elephant and Castle isn't just local. It's a miniature of London itself, of how cities evolve, decay, and reinvent themselves. The Elephant represented the energy of industrial capitalism, messy, crowded, but full of life. In the post-war era, it embodied the optimism of the welfare state. Architecture demonstrated social progress. Today, it reflects the logic of a market, where architecture is an asset. Each transformation claimed to improve what came before. Each one did, and then in a sense didn't. Every new building and every revitalisation tells us more about who the city is for, as well as who it is pushing out. In Elephant and Castle, you can still see these old layers of the history of this area, in old pubs, music halls, and in the architectural ghost of the Haygate estate. And that's it for today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed this look into the history of Elephant and Castle. So, thanks for watching. If you liked it, give us a like, subscribe for more. I bring out new episodes every Tuesday. Goodbye.